This is the story of a man who almost sold his father's legacy for scrap. What he found behind one wall would change everything he thought he knew about his own family. Stay with me until the end because the final discovery is something almost no one saw coming. Before we continue, if you enjoy true stories like this one, stories about ordinary people who stumble onto something extraordinary, do me a favor. Hit follow, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. It really does help this channel keep telling these stories. Now let's get back to the factory. For 30 years this factory sat silent, at the edge of a quiet town where everybody knew everybody. Its windows were broken. Its gates were rusted shut. Weeds grew through the cracks in the parking lot like the earth itself was trying to reclaim it. His father built this place with his bare hands, back when the town was young and full of promise. Brick by brick, beam by beam, he turned an empty field into a place where hundreds of families once earned their living. But that was a long time ago. His father was gone now. And the bills, the taxes, the slow decay of an empty building. None of that waited for anyone's grief. Everyone told him the same thing. Sell it. Walk away. Let it go. His siblings said it. His wife said it gently over dinner. Even the old man's oldest friend, the one who used to work the factory floor, told him there was nothing left inside those walls but dust and debt. And on paper they were right. The land alone, cleared and sold to developers, was worth more than the building had earned in the last decade combined. A buyer was already waiting. The contract sat on his kitchen table for nearly a week untouched, like it was daring him to sign it. But something kept pulling him back. A feeling he couldn't quite explain. So before he signed anything, he decided to do one last walkthrough. Alone. No agents. No family. Just him, the silence, and 30 years of dust. He remembers the sound the door made when he pushed it open. A long, low groan like the building itself was waking up after a very long sleep. Sunlight poured through broken skylights in thin golden beams, catching dust in the air like slow-falling snow. It was beautiful in a haunting sort of way. And it was quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you hear your own heartbeat. He walked the length of the old assembly floor, running his hand along cold metal railings his father once gripped every single day. He remembered visiting as a boy, sitting on a crate in the corner, watching his father move through the chaos of machines and workers like he was conducting an orchestra only he could hear. That's when he noticed something strange. Near the back of the building, past the old break room, there was a wall. And something about it looked off. The bricks were a slightly different color. The mortar lines were straighter, newer, less weathered than everything around it, as if this one section had been built years after the rest of the factory was finished. He stepped closer, ran his fingers across the surface, knocked on it almost without thinking. Hello. His father was many things, stubborn, quiet, endlessly practical, but careless was never one of them. A man like that didn't build a wall for no reason, which meant somebody had wanted whatever was behind it to stay hidden. He didn't sleep much that night. He kept thinking about that hollow sound, replaying it over and over like a puzzle piece that didn't belong to the picture everyone else assumed was already finished. The next morning, before the sun was even fully up, he was back at the gate with a flashlight, a crowbar, and a question he couldn't shake. What was his father hiding and why? Brick by brick he worked the wall loose. His hands ached. Dust filled the air, catching in the morning light streaming through the broken windows. And then finally one brick gave way completely, and a rush of cool, stale air escaped from the darkness behind it, like the room itself had been holding its breath for decades. He shined the flashlight inside, and what he saw made him stop breathing for a second. It wasn't ruin. It wasn't rot. It was a room small, dry, and completely undisturbed. Wooden crates were stacked in careful, deliberate rows. Shelves lined the walls holding tools, folders, and objects wrapped carefully in old cloth. Like someone had prepared this space with the same care you'd use to preserve something precious. Someone had sealed this room on purpose. And sealed it very, very well. He pulled himself through the gap and stepped inside, flashlight shaking slightly in his hand. The first crate he opened held a leather-bound journal, its cover cracked with age. He recognized the handwriting on the very first page immediately. His father's. Faded but unmistakable. Page after page was filled with notes, sketches, calculations, years of quiet, careful work. Not factory orders. Not payroll. Something else entirely. A private project built in secret after hours, long after the workers had gone home and the town had gone to sleep. As he read further, a picture started to form. His father hadn't just been running a factory all those years. In the evenings alone, he'd been designing something, an idea he clearly believed in deeply, but for reasons the journal didn't fully explain, had never shown to another living soul. In the second crate, wrapped carefully in old cloth and packed with sawdust for protection, he found it. A working prototype, hand-built, with the same care and precision his father brought to everything he touched. Brass fittings, careful joints, small mechanisms that still, somehow, after all these years, moved smoothly when he tested them by hand. He sat down right there on the dusty floor, the journal open across his knees, staring at a piece of his father he never knew existed. Not the tired man who came home late smelling of oil and metal. Not the strict boss the workers respected but rarely hugged. A dreamer. Someone with a private hope he'd never had the courage or the chance to share. For a long moment he just sat there in the quiet, not really looking at the machine anymore but through it, feeling closer to his father than he had in years. That afternoon he made one phone call. Not to the buyer waiting on the contract. To his family. He told them what he'd found and told them something else too. The factory wasn't for sale anymore. It wasn't an easy decision, and it wasn't met without some resistance. His siblings were unsure. His wife worried about the risk. But when they stood together in that hidden room, looking at their father's careful handwriting and his quiet, unfinished dream, something shifted. They understood all at once why he couldn't let it go. What followed took months. Cleaning, repairing, reaching out to old engineers who'd once worked alongside his father, people who remembered him fondly and were stunned to learn what he'd been building in secret all those years. Piece by piece, floor by floor, the factory began to breathe again. They didn't just restore a building. They finished something his father had started and never got to complete, carrying his quiet, private hope into the light, decades later than he ever intended, but not too late. If a story like this moves you even a little, this is exactly the kind of channel worth following. New stories go up regularly, and subscribing is the best way to make sure you catch every single one. Today the factory stands again. Lights on, doors open, its name restored above the entrance. But it's not really the building people talk about when they walk past it now. It's the story. The wall. The room that waited patiently in the dark for 30 years. For someone who cared enough to knock on it, and listen for the silence to answer back. Because some inheritances aren't written in a will. Some are hidden behind a wall, quietly waiting for someone who refuses to walk away. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you would have done if you were standing in his shoes. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.